Hi everyone, welcome to Active Self-Protection Extra. Today I want to talk about an article that I read in The Trace that is titled "Detroit Ended 2024 with the Lowest Number of Homicides Since 1965. Now it may lose a crucial program." And that's a title that sounds like it came out of 1872, but it was a very interesting article and I thought I would share it with you. Mr. Target is the sponsor of today's video. If you're looking for excellently engineered steel targets that will withstand thousands and thousands of pistol, rifle, or shotgun rounds, Mr. Target is my go-to resource. They've got self-sealing rubber targets too, and you can see us use them all the time on the Active Self-Protection Extra YouTube channel. Hit the link in the description to check Mr. Target out and be sure to thank them for sponsoring today's video. So the link to the article is in the description and you should certainly check it out and read it. It's a 5 to 8 minute read. I think it was really interesting. And I know some readers are gonna be like, oh, it's The Trace and that's a gun control rag and I don't want anything to do with that. I think that's a mistake, quite frankly. I think that sometimes reading those things can give us some really interesting material, some really interesting discussion. And this particular one, I actually ended up sending this article to Professor David Yamane. And you might remember here recently on the channel, I had Professor Yamane on the channel because he was here in town for a seminar series, like an event that he had at the Center for the Study of Gun Violence, the Center for the Study of Guns in Society at ASU. And we went to a seminar together about street par political action research. And this article actually really reminded me of some of the political action research that the folks that led that panel discussion that we got to be part of were in. So I thought I would read you some of the interesting parts. Again, it's a publicly accessible article. I can't tell you enough. Read it because honestly, I actually think at the end of the day, I'm gonna tip my hat that this is the kind of stuff that we as Second Amendment supporters should wholeheartedly be behind. This is the kind of stuff that I really think is really important. Now, I'm gonna have to put my glasses on because presbyopia gets us all as we get older, and so you're just gonna have to deal with me at that because I'm gonna be reading it from here. So I'm gonna read you a few of the important bits from this, and I want you to just kind of go with me. I'll put them up on screen as well so you can see them. But some things that were really fascinating to me. Number one, he says, during the early years of the pandemic, gun crimes soared. All right, I hate the idea of gun crimes. Okay, so there's crime and crime and crime. Just because, you know, that's like tire iron crime isn't a thing. I just think that that's a misnomer. I don't think it helps move the discussion forward, okay? But he gives some reasons here. As boredom, social media fights, and socioeconomic issues drove gang conflicts throughout the city. Okay. Gang conflicts is where we're really having problems here, and those gang conflicts are being exacerbated by socioeconomic issues, absolutely, by social media fights, 100%, and by boredom. All right, the number of homicides increased by nearly 19% in 2020 compared to the previous year, consistent with national trends. Gun violence hotspots in Detroit proliferated over the next couple of years. Now, interesting bit here, the toll on Black communities was part of a decades-long pattern. According to police data, there were 1,994 homicides in the city from 2017 through 2023. So that's a, 7-year process there. About 90% of victims were Black and 90% were by gun. Okay, these are statistics, and there is a theory there that the rise in violent crime, the rise in homicides is because of gang fights that were caused by socioeconomic issues, boredom, and social media fights. All right. So we have a problem here, and this is like, hey, wait a minute, how do we do something about this problem? I think that is worth to look at. I think sometimes, you know, some people say, oh, it's a them problem, figure it out. Let me stop and just say this, they are us, okay? They are American citizens, and we are interested in each other, and we have to say, okay, wait a minute, what's causing this? Can we help to change some of the ways that things happen in those communities so that that number decreases, okay? Because those lives matter a bunch. Again, I'm not trying to preach at you, but I am a follower of the way of Jesus. And so to me, loving my neighbor means I want to help them out. And if we've got external forces that are causing an increase in these problems, if we can hopefully decrease those problems, then we are doing good in our world. And that's honoring, as part of my worldview, that's honoring to bring the goodness of the kingdom of God somewhere. So let's keep going. To combat the surge, Vu and others pushed the city to fund community violence intervention, especially for the neighborhoods most afflicted. Love that. Find where the violence is highest and what can we do. And I love community violence intervention. Let's see about why though, because this could be sketchy still. They were responding to the city's decision to install gunshot detection technology and wanted to ensure the police weren't the only resources deployed. I'm all for cops being deployed. I don't know about the shot spotter technology. I don't know that that's making things better, because here's where the problem is. And I think that this next bit in their discussion is important. We don't want the cops just jumping out if there's a shot detection and you're frisking and you're harassing people. Vu said the key element above all is genuine love for these individuals. And with genuine love, you're going to be able to make an impact in their life and in their family lives. I love this, okay? So it's not to say that we don't want police to police crime. That's not it at all. Or to say, wait a minute, when people are shooting each other up, we want to know who's doing that and stop that, because the vast majority of these problems are coming from a very small subset of people. But it's to say that we don't just want, oh, there's a shot, so we're going to go wherever that shot was, and for a few block radius around, we're just going to toss the joint and start tossing everyone with kind of stop and frisk stuff. That builds distrust between communities. Instead, you got to dive in there in the underlying root causes. The thing that I love from here, and I hope that you get from here as we discuss, that they're not talking about we got to control guns. This is important. This is not what this article is about. It's not we got to control guns. It's we got to love these people in their community, and we got to invest in their community with genuine love to be able to make an impact in their life and in their families' lives with genuine love. And I think that to me is absolutely spot on. So let's keep trucking here. For the groups to receive more funding. So let me see. I think it might have got these out of order for me here. Here's an interesting one. We realize that we cannot arrest our way out of crime, said Franklin Hayes, the department's deputy police chief in charge of its crime strategies bureau. So this is a cop saying that. Adding that cutting violent crime is not just about making arrests, but bringing resources to those areas that usually struggle. We looked at the historic areas where we've seen violent crime happen, and we just focus on those areas. I actually really like this. I think from a policing perspective, we can't just arrest our way out of crime. That typical way of looking at things, we just take the offender away, then we're good. And okay, fine for that second, but we got to address the underlying issues to change the patterns and the behaviors. And I think that is really important, okay? Here's an even better part and a better solution. It says, I used to lock up 100 African-American men a day, said Pamela McLean, a former commander of the Wayne County Sheriff's Office. Of course, Detroit's in Wayne County in Michigan. Now we're on the other side of helping them with workforce development, workforce training, squashing beefs before they even get out. That's unprecedented. Oh, yes, I think this is something we should absolutely get behind. That we say, wait a minute, how are we going to decrease these problems? We get involved in their lives by helping them with socioeconomic opportunity and by helping them squash beefs in a way that respects their community and understands their cultural realities and their neighborhood dynamics, and does so in a very localized way, and really builds into them that they can do that in an emotionally healthy way for them, and that will decrease the crime problem in the longer term in a very, very good way. I love this, okay? Now, let's think about some more stuff here. It says, as a volunteer after his release from prison in 2019, yikes, DeJuan Zoe Kennedy was helping to develop the group's outreach efforts when he observed the nature of the gun violence they were witnessing. It wasn't a result of people hanging out on the block or in front of convenience stores selling drugs or shooting at random. It was interpersonal violence. This is important, friends. Interpersonal violence here is we've got beef between us, and that's where this violence is going to come from. And so getting in front of that interpersonal violence is a much higher priority than let's see what we can do to keep a gun out of that guy's hands. As Force's newly appointed executive director, Kennedy is using his experience to direct the remedy for targeted violence. Here's the remedy: conflict mediation. We try to minimize the possibility of conflict amongst people who live around each other. I'm so excited for this. This is actually like causative level stuff rather than tilting after windmills of if we just get guns off the streets, because that's not gonna do it, friends. Now, one of the ways that they do this and that they've been doing this, and this is really important, is this. It says the freedom that each organization's leaders have to put together their own strategies is replicable in other places, even if the circumstances around gun violence are different. So in each of the city's kind of districts and wards that they had these grants to work in, they let each neighborhood community, so they recruited from that community, they empowered in that community, they gave funds into those communities for those people to go to work. And they did so in a way that was targeted, and they got to make their own strategy. They got to then see what worked best for them. And then they would do the data research and say, did this work? Did that change the level of violence in this community statistically significantly compared to everything else around it? If it did, then they got more funds. They got more research grants. They got more community intervention funds. And I just think that is amazing. I think that that is absolutely it. Here's where it comes. It says for the groups to receive more funding, reductions in non-fatal shootings and homicides had to outpace the citywide trend. By the end of October 2024, the city recorded a 45% year-over-year drop in homicides in the areas where this group, Shot Stoppers, was implemented versus 18% in places without it. So over twice as much. This is exactly the kind of stuff that I think we want to do. So if you look at kind of the data here, and you look at the statistics here from the FBI's Unified Crime Reporting Program, which is what they looked at here. First of all, I want you to notice that Detroit as a city has, in 2022, a homicide rate of 48.0 per 100,000, whereas the national average is around 5.8 that year. So we're talking about almost an order of magnitude higher, like from 5 to 50 is almost what we're looking at here in terms of how much different it is there. And then when they started implementing these policies, boy, we had a big change, down to 39.1, down to 31.8. So we went from maybe a 10x to down to, in 2024, a 6x. It's still ridiculously high, but you're talking about really making a significant difference in an area that really is needed. Now, of course, the article does end with some discussion on how worried they are because of the current administration, the Trump administration's cutting of federal funding for stuff. And I'm of the mindset that this is the kind of stuff that I think we should be funding. This is the kind of stuff that I think we as Second Amendment supporters should really be getting behind, because I think it recognizes, and if you go read the article, I hope you'll agree with me on this, that it wasn't about let's get guns out of people's hands, let's get folks to turn in guns, let's do gun stuff. There was nothing about guns in here. This was about, hey, how do we look in this community where we're having these huge problems? I mean, our homicide rates are literally 10 times above the national average. And we recognize that the problems are socioeconomic opportunity, they are interpersonal beefs, gang violence, social media beefs. They are lack of emotional coping skills and a lack of the ability to coexist in a high population density area with all those things going on. So if we can bring some job training, if we can bring some economic opportunity, some microloans, some small business stuff, if we can bring some interpersonal skills training and how to handle these beefs without them getting violent to begin with, squashing them early, if we can build resilience in the community, then we can decrease these numbers very significantly. And we wouldn't expect that to happen kind of overnight. But boy, are they having success. Now, I know there's going to be some discussion here. I don't want it to devolve into politics left and right. And should the federal government be spending money on this stuff? I think that this is the kind of research, though. This is the kind of activity. This is the kind of intervention that we as a Second Amendment community should really get behind. So look for that. And if you have that in your community, so you live in Memphis, you live in Jackson, Mississippi, you live in Murder Town, USA, Wilmington, Delaware. You live in a rough neighborhood, heck, here in Phoenix, Arizona, down in Maryvale. And instead of going, well, what are we going to do? Just fix the culture. No, this is the kind of strategy. So these are the kind of folks that we can get a hold of in order to say, hey, teach us how to do this in our community and get invested. Here's the big thing, right? Here's the big thing to me. Get invested in loving your neighbors. Get invested if you live in that community, if you're a part of that community, if you're from that community, with earnestly loving those folks and providing the longer term solutions that actually can really significantly make a difference. I think this is the kind of stuff we can really get behind. And this is the kind of stuff I actually like reading. So I hope you enjoy this kind of discussion as well. Read the article and then comment and let me know what you think about implementing this in various places around our nation.